Hey everybody, this is Troy the Playing Scape guy from I Want to Be a GM. With me today.
Jester Borris, also from I Want to Be a GM. We're glad to have you.
So, I Want to Be a GM. Our slogan is helping players move behind the screen. And you can find us at our .com, our Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and Discord channels. Please click, share, join, subscribe, all of that different stuff. So today we're going to do a short show.
You gotta alliterate, end up with the wrong words.
Yes. um, I'm going to show you the process that I use going from a story to a D&D adventure.
This is the same process that we teach as well. And we've got 7 points that we make sure to hit every time for a complete adventure. And we're going to show you a little bit about that as we're working on our charity game. We're going to be playing at VisionCon.
Yeah, this game, it means a lot to me personally. And some of the guys that I talked to said, hey, I want to be involved with that too. So I'm trying to break it up into pieces so everybody,
right.
everybody can get a little bit in on it. A little quick history. Joe Ryan, who a lot of people may have seen at VisionCon over the years, spends his time in a wheelchair, but his mind is extremely active, and he's been gaming for
20 plus years.
20,
I don't think I've been to a VisionCon without him.
Yeah, 20 plus years.
He's also done a lot of cosplay. I think the most recent one I remember was Deadpool riding a unicorn. He's got a great sense of humor, very active imagination. He's a very good player.
He has a very good imagination. So at Geekness, he approached me with an idea for a game. Of course, with his limitations, he's not able to write anymore, and he's not able to play as much as well as he used to.
Right.
So he said, "Hey, I got this idea for a game. I want you to help me make it." And when he pitched me the idea and the story behind it, I said, "Oh, this is great. This would be an awesome game to play at a con. I'm in 110%."
Yeah. Now, keep in mind as we talk about this, we're developing this game to be a convention game, which means we're going to have time constraints, more shenanigans than you might find in a regular game.
Lots of shenanigans.
And that's just because the con environment's meant to be more fun, a little less serious.
Yeah.
You can always dungeon dive some orcs and trolls, but
if you're playing at home or you're playing at a game store, you're there to kill monsters and get some cash.
Right.
Yeah, and the shenanigans at the table, both instigated by players or just part of the game itself, that's not what you're there for typically. Right. However, when you go to a con, rules be damned, we're having some fun.
Yeah, you bend those stuff, and it's just a different flavor of game. So keep in mind that this is meant to be played at convention with different limitations and a higher level of hijinks than you might anticipate for a regular one-shot. But our process still remains true, and the points that we need to hit are still valid.
So I am going to hit some of the things that I've already set to paper.
Well,
and I've got a book full of notes.
Let's see. Do we have a little bit of context here for the 7 points that we are going to be?
There. The second one.
Second.
The second one. That would be the second one.
No, this is not it.
It is. Oh, that's the city. That's building a city.
Yeah, this is your leftover stuff from when we're talking about world building. Don't miss Through the Realms every third Sunday here.
Yeah, it was part of that. Sorry. Anyway, driving forward. So step one is you have to develop a story. And a story is who's doing what, where are they, and why is it? And when would this adventure be over? What sets the end of the story?
Right.
Be it killing or capturing the bad guy, or do you want to continue into another story, or how do you want to end it? So when you have your story, there's 5 elements that you're going to look for. You have the good guys, typically that's our heroes.
Typically.
Bad guys. Bad guys can be one individual. It could be an army. It could be a group of bandits. It could be caves full of kobolds. So when you're thinking of your bad guys, it doesn't necessarily have to be the evil wizard on the mountain on high. It could be a group as well.
Whoever's causing the problem that the heroes are ultimately going to tackle.
Right. Yes. So in fighting, there's going to be some fighting in there somewhere. I mean, it's
an adventure game.
It's an adventure game.
That's what we're doing.
You can't do it without some. So we need to structure their fighting so that it's in keeping with the story. We don't want to have TIE fighters show up and blow everybody away and the game's over. You need to keep it in with the story.
we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that, but you'll see as part of our theory, we always want our combat encounters to drive our story forward. So
Yep.
we'll make sure that we don't have anything extraneous, but we're not going to leave anything out either.
Yeah. You don't want the story to get bogged down by the fighting. And they open another door. Oh, we got more fighting to do. Oh, and you open another door. Oh, we got more fighting to do.
Classic dungeon crawl versus story driven.
Right.
Now we got good guys, bad guys, fighting.
Well, we're going to have aliens and monsters of
Okay.
some kind. So you need to define who your both the monsters are that are going to be fought, as well as all the NPCs that are going to be in the story. Be it merchants, it's the princess who got kidnapped, it's the whoever it is. It's a village. Just define all of the extra people who are not the hero. What's their part in the story?
Right.
Everybody's going to have a part. If they don't have a part in the story, they're in the wrong story. So put them over there. So we got good guys, bad guys fighting aliens, and typically it's explosions, fireball. I don't know who said that. So you're going to have magic in there somewhere, but in your story, you want to have a balance between magic and technology. Typically, if you're making a D&D game,
right,
we know where our technology is. If we're having something that's either higher adventure or into another game system, then your technology level is going to be more. If we're making a Star Wars game, you're still going to have good guys, bad guys fighting and all this kind of stuff, but now you have technology. So you want to establish, I'm playing in this world setting, so this is what I got. So once you establish those things, now we can drive forward with the story. Who's doing what to who and why and where.
So what are some of the basics, without giving too much away, talk about here for Joe's game? Where do we want to start?
Well, Joe's game, when I went and interviewed him last week,
I guess give us the big picture, and then we'll get into the detailed.
So the big picture, he sat and told me a story for 2 hours before we got to the game.
Right.
It was all the back history on the four adventurers, and their patron, the guy that's footing their bill for these four brave adventurers who are going through an adventurers guild set in Forgotten Realms.
All right.
And the dungeon we're going to build is their final challenge to graduate. So they get their adventurers guild card and kicked out into the world to go seek their fortune. So a lot of the crazy stuff revolved around their patron, the guy who's footing the bill. So I'll tell you a little bit about this guy. I don't have him quite sorted out completely because there are some blanks in his background that I need to fill in. But basically, his name's Dr. Dumore, and he's a cross between Dr. Dolittle, who talks with the animals, and Doctor Who from sci-fi.
Yeah, a long-running sci-fi series.
So we have some crazy mentality there. This game is going to be full of 80s and 90s pop references, and you as the player, if you correctly guess what's going on, you're going to get points. Because we're playing at a con, we're going to use our point system we used at Geek Miss for Undermountain, and you'll get points towards winning the game and for prizes. The grand prize, I'll tell you about it in a minute.
Yeah, let's wait for a little bit on that.
So his full name is Dr. Ignatius Hubert Dumore, but his friends call him Q.
All right.
Do you need points yet for pop reference to that?
Oh, sure. We got IQ for his intelligence. We got Q out of Bond. We got.
And you get Q from Star Trek.
Oh, awesome. That's
yes.
A couple places you can go with that.
He's the group's benefactor, helping fund their schooling, as well as provided each of them with a pet. What kid doesn't need a pet?
Yeah. It's also the window into even greater shenanigans.
So one of them has a tiger. One of them has an emu that he can ride. One has a monkey, and the other has a falcon. And they each have a special magical benefit with their owner, things that they can communicate.
Right.
Wouldn't it be nice if you could communicate with your pet tiger?
All I know is that the emu would probably just try to sell me.
Well, funny you should mention that, because...
Oh, we're jumping ahead a few pages. I got him going.
Because the emu owner is named Taja Majors. He's an Oriental male artificer, and his name is Doug.
All right.
He has knowledge of how to control, and the big item that we're going to be looking for in the dungeon is called the Gygax particle.
Oh man, here we go.
Okay. So the Gygax particle can allow the possessor to create worlds or creatures by mere thought. Anybody know who Gygax was?
Yeah, you might also refer to it as the homebrew particle.
Yeah, the homebrew particle.
But yeah, Gygax worked on the chainmail system, which eventually became Dungeons and Dragons 74 White Box, and now that developed into the game that we're all playing and developing more crazy games.
So going back to Doug, his animal protector is an emu that he can sometimes ride, and the emu's name is Limu. In his pocket, he holds a secret weapon. I'm not gonna give this one.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna give that away. So, but I did. If you want to read this, you can. I did put their description on there, like you suggested.
Oh,
which made them even funnier. Yeah.
Oh no. So
there's
sorry to keep that secret, but
there's a lot of things in the game that are going to be there for the players' fun that day, and I don't want to give it all away because it is going to be lots and lots of fun. So let's see here. In one of the rooms, I'm calling them by the type of room that they are, because as a group event, they need to have challenges as a group, and challenges specifically as their class or individual skill.
Right, and the reason you want that is obviously it's a group effort, but when you have specifically designed challenges, it allows an opportunity for that player to stand out in that moment. Right. When you come up across the skeletons, the cleric gets to turn undead and they crumble to dust. That's a cool moment. So we've got some things like that are going to be specific to these characters as we go through this dungeon. But it's not only going to let the players shine, but progress the story as well.
So in one of the group challenge rooms,
Here we go.
They have to build a bridge to get across a river of lava, and it's too wide to jump.
Can I use a witch?
A witch?
They're made out of wood.
They float.
Build a bridge out of her.
So there are piles of miscellaneously shaped pieces of wood laying about that you discover by looking at them and applying common logic that they fit together. They're giant tinker toys. Anybody knows what tinker toys were back in the 70s and 80s? They're little blocks of crazy shaped wood you could stick together and build stuff.
Yeah, so Lincoln Logs, but the tinker toy I remember had like the wooden thing and you put pegs in it.
Yeah.
And that's where you got your triangle shapes. You build scaffolding.
So instead of a peg, you're going to have 6-foot boards and giant wooden cogs, and you can put these all together and build a wooden bridge.
Right.
To get across the river lava.
So that's what's going to happen in the story, but what's going to happen at the table is we're going to dump out.
We'll dump out some tinker toys.
And see if your players can build a bridge or not.
And see if they can build a bridge or not. And it will be a timed event.
Well, sure.
So they're going to get so much go.
Lava's rising.
Right. So one of the other characters, let's see, how can I get it? Okay. So Joe has a lot of love in his heart for WWE. He loves wrestling and all the crazy things that goes with it. But he specifically loves wrestling from the 80s. So we have Chris Jericho.
Yeah, he was a 90s.
He was a 90s. But we also have so I forget who the others were that he named. They're my book of notes here.
Yeah, I know on our phone call he rattled off like 4 names. They're all big, So
one of the characters is patterned after Chris Jericho, Chris Jericho, male half-elf, rogue, bard, very charismatic and sure of himself. He plays a lute, rock star style, of course, and he can use it as a last chance weapon by yelling out "Kabong!" and striking somebody with it. Of course, it destroys the lute, but It was the last chance weapon. He got away from who he was.
It's a Hanna-Barbera reference for anybody who's keeping track.
So during the fight, he is liable to yell out, "Woo!" If anybody knows any WWF wrestling, it's an inspiration call to himself and his allies. Everybody that hears it has a +2 to attack and all defensive rolls for the rest of that battle.
That's pretty good.
And if you think it's wearing off, he can just woo again. So there's a lot of things going on, and the four heroes, besides having pets, they also have a specialty skill over an element. So there's air, water, fire, and earth. Mm-hmm. Each of the heroes have one that they can do something with. And it's one of the things I've been learning in school. So this is going to be a very involved adventure.
Just the character write-ups by themselves are going to be fairly detailed.
That's why he took 2 hours on just their background.
Right.
And how this one, and how they pick the party leader when they get ready to go into the dungeon.
Yeah, this was interesting. So in the background, having been together as a party before, they all have they sort of rotate, take turns for who's going to be in charge in this trial or that dungeon. So we've got a method for selecting the party leader, which is going to come with its own things that you have to manage in that regard. That'll add another element of fun. Another
element that I want to keep hush-hush until the actual game, because the players will all get a kick out of it. A lot of the stuff in the dungeon is illusion. Some of it's not. You got to figure out which is which, because the illusions can't hurt you. The other stuff can. Let's see. Oh, in color commentary, I need to find somebody that can do color commentary. He really wants to have a couple people. Wants to have this broadcast or recorded, and then being live to a monitor somewhere out in the hall, and then have a couple people doing color commentary, like from ESPN, the Ocho from Dodgeball, talking about, and making fun of the different characters and things going on in the game.
It looks like they're in a tiny room. I hope the wizard doesn't cast Fireball, Steve.
What was that? Fireball.
He's about to cast Fireball.
He's about to.
He's casting it at a 5th level. He's adding additional die
damage. He's adding that additional dice damage and casting from a higher. Yeah.
And the room, again, is 20 by 20.
I didn't ask how big the room was.
Yep.
So the finale fight. The finale fight is going to be done live action.
Yes. Now, this was because it's a convention game,
yeah.
We have the option. I guess you could, depending on where you're playing at, but most people are going to want to do what we have in mind here. But a lot of the conventions in our area, at least, have had cosplay combat, Amp Guard, which is a LARP group that does foam combat weapons. So there's these areas that are set aside specifically for these groups to play at.
Right.
And we came up with something that was kind of interesting based on.
I don't want to give away the details, but the final room will be a live action LARP cosplay combat kind of scenario, and it's going to.
I'm going to get the players up and off the table to add just another element to the game that's probably unexpected, but should be a lot of fun for the finale.
And I want to encourage everybody to make an effort to come to VisionCon, and if not actually get in the game, because we can only have 4 players, but stay around and watch the game, because we'll broadcast it somehow, somewhere.
Well,
and
so for ourselves, we always try to broadcast when we're at an event.
Yes.
We're going to try to have maybe a monitor up for the audience, but games like this at a convention always have room for audience participation. We had a lot of success with it at our charity game that we ran with Haven. We ran Troy's Adventures in Babysitting. And the audience participation took the shenanigans to a level we've never seen before. The house caught fire. It happens half the time, but it was
it's not planned. It's not planned.
It's never planned, and it's always really fun.
Yeah.
So, we'll always have ways for audience to interject and affect the game, whether for good or bad. That's up to you. but it is a lot of fun. So if you're gonna be at VisionCon anyway, be sure to come by, see us at the game room. That's this year, 2023, October 13th, 14th, and 15th. Let's see that one. Got a lot of it in my head. They're gonna be at the Springfield Expo Center.
Yes.
MidaCon will be the other place.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about Joe's story. Let's talk about your story, because I'm sure everybody out there.
Oh, you're working on this? Where's their workshop? We moved all of our stuff around.
We moved all our stuff all around.
I'll grab it.
No, that's the game.
Okay.
So, talking about your story that you want to build into an adventure. So, we have the who, what, where, why, and you're developing into who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, what is that they're doing, how are they doing it, do they have an organization, are they a group of bandits, or a group of kobolds, a group of pirates, maybe, whoever the bad guys are. They're doing something that needs to be taken care of. So we know that kind of stuff. Just write that down, gives you a raw paragraph, so you know you have that as a reference. So now we're going to turn our raw story. We need to develop 4 chapters or of play. Okay, so chapter 1 is going to be an introduction of the characters, meaning not just the player characters at the table, but also the NPCs and what is going on. And did the king summon them? Are they answering a posting that was on the board in the city square? Just introducing everybody and getting the whole story up and running. How does it all start? That's your big intro. Your chapter 2 is going to be introduction to the problem. One of the ways I like to introduce the players to the problem is to throw them into it face first. So, as an example, let's say the problem are slavers. Slavers are going village to village, taking everybody, killing the rest, and burning everything else to the ground. Well, that's not good for the economy. So we introduce the problem as the slavers by kidnapping, capturing, tying up, taking all their stuff into the slavery. So now they've been introduced into the problem, and they know who's the bad guys and we're the good guys. So we got to remedy this. And they then figure out how high they want to go in the organization to eliminate it. Do they just want to take out the guys going village to village, or do they want to go after one of the top guys, or maybe to the very tippy top guy, and try to eliminate the whole organization? So that's chapter 3, which is the struggle, the actual fight. From step 1, introduce them to it here, and then here's the bad guys in the struggle. So the struggle can be your dungeon, just where you're going to need to make your maps. You have to figure out your monsters, your traps, your amount of treasure, all these different things to build your dungeon. And it doesn't have to be underground in a lair somewhere. It could be whatever the bad guys have as a lair, that's your dungeon. So just think of the dungeon as a place where the bad guys have collected all their stuff. And then chapter 4 is the resolution, where they save the day. They kill or capture the bad guys, they get all the treasure, they bring the princess back home to the king, or however the story all wraps up. And during that resolution, somewhere in there, is where I like to hint of the next chapter or the next adventure of, hey, since you guys did so good on this job, I have another one for you that's just up your alley. People of your skills, you can make lots of money doing this stuff. Let me tell you about this.
Because you survived more than once.
You survived it. So that's the basic 4 chapters of writing the adventure.
Yeah, and then
you're starting your introduction to the characters, introduction to the problem, the struggle, the fight, the dungeon, and then the resolution.
So that's your general overview of like your story. The way we go further, the way we take that a little bit and actually start to develop it into a game that you can play, are with these 7 points, pulling this right out of our workshop. If you've ever been able to attend one of our workshops, this is some of the material that we teach a little bit later in the series, where we get into writing a one-shot that can then develop into a campaign. So we've got these points here. You might write them down. I'm sorry I don't have any graphics. Wasn't prepared today, but what happens when you have real time. So you want to start with an intro to be read to the players. This is going to be contain some of your background, but not necessarily all of your background. If you consider things like the Curse of Strahd, there's a lot in the 800 years Strahd has been a vampire that is background to that adventure. But when it comes to some of the things that you mentioned, Troy, in the things that we're talking about with our players as we introduce the setup, we got a drama or a conflict for what is going on, good versus evil, so PCs versus what problem. In your example, the slavers.
It's a good example.
We've beaten a whole lot. A lot of the low-level modules out of Greyhawk deal with Hold of the Sea Prince, and they are pirates set through slavery, and we beat them up all the time.
One of the things I want to put into people's minds out there is, okay, chapter 1, they're going to be fighting slavery, okay? And they can capture them all, they can kill them all, they can burn a place to the ground. And then, the last few that they capture, they bring in to stand justice by the king. So they've been defeated. But those guys worked for somebody. They were getting paid by somebody to bring in slaves for some purpose. And you don't have slaves for a non-evil purpose. So
for sure,
they were working for somebody. So now there's an intro to your next chapter.
Well, this goes so as we're talking about.
Always be thinking about where are they going?
Right, and so that goes from your one shot into your campaign.
Right.
Because your one shot might be the slavers or the orc raiders on a village, but then the campaign deals with why. What's the larger picture? How does this affect not the village, but the realm, or the plane?
Kind of keep this in the back of your mind as a campaign. So everybody knows Star Wars, or at least you better. So we got 9 movies.
Yeah.
Those are 9 chapters, 9 one-shots. But the campaign is all of them together. We have a steady theme. We're following R2-D2 and C-3PO from one movie to the next. And they're going through all of them. And that's a campaign. So you have an overall theme that's tying the whole storyline together. Yeah, and then they have chapters that you play it.
With the main big bad that's manipulating.
And it's not always the same. It doesn't have to be the same bad guy.
Yeah.
Bad guys know each other. They all hang out at the same bar. So this guy is in control of this area. That guy's in control of that area. It's just like the mob. Think of the bad guys like the mob. They each have an area, and that's who's in charge in that area. So when you go into another area, completely different problem over here. You got slavers over here. You come over here, and everything is
undead for no reason.
Yeah, just completely different problems. So keep that in mind.
So once we get into the intro that contains some of our background, the who's, where's, why's, and some of the things that came before the adventure, so that as a game master, have an idea of what was developing to become this problem. We get into the goals. So what are the PC trying to accomplish in this adventure? So in the context here where we're talking about Joe's game, it's a trial. And now obviously want to accomplish going through the trial and getting the Gygax. I think that's awesome. But that's, so there we go. Point number 2, that's our goal, right? We have a very clear goal and a little bit of problem. So graduation test, through the labyrinth, get the Gygax part. Yep. So a story to the DM or GM. So this is the behind the scenes. This is the more detail as far as who the bad guys are, what their motivations are, what might some of their logistics or organization like. Things that the PCs may eventually uncover as they continue to come up against this organization or against this problem.
But it's information that you as the DM need to know. That's the background, the hidden stuff that the PCs are going to be struggling against. They're fighting this guy. Well, this guy always has 2 henchmen that are behind him, and they're both uber assassins. So as soon as I'm gonna go sneak up there. I'm gonna steal his pocket. I'm gonna steal all the money he's got in his pocket. Well, the 2 assassins right behind him in his hip pocket, they don't think that's a good idea. So they're gonna explain it to you. So that's when the character finds out that those guys are there. But you as the DM
should know about
them ahead of time.
And this also, I'll go ahead and make a note here because it comes up periodically as we talk about NPCs. But you'll want to know how these guys do combat. You want to know how they fight. Yeah. So when Superman goes up against Lex Luthor, particularly early in the comics before they had him get a robot suit, he never fought Lex Luthor directly. Lex Luthor is a human. Man can't punch him without killing him.
Right.
But Lex Luthor fought against Superman with traps and schemes and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So, that style of bad guy fights differently. So if I'm going to go up against a wizard, I need to know what spells he has, what magic items, what defenses he's going to have in place. Those sorts of things when we enter the Lich's lair in Tomb of Annihilation. He's got to pull right up. We know how that Lich is going to fight. Yeah. It's also helpful to know if my bad guy's got a staff of fireball, he's going to use it. Right? As he's getting his butt kicked, he's going to use it. You don't want this treasure to show up randomly later. But also when it comes to story important items, signet rings, letters that further the story, the bad guy's here, or make sure those things get put into this section here for the story to the GM. They'll want to know how these guys fight, how they conduct themselves, and what information they have access to.
Do a complete write-up on your NPCs, especially the bad guys and their henchmen. That's a character sheet minimum, and then another page that's going to talk about their motivations. Why are they doing what they're doing? How do they do what they're doing? It just about them in the organization.
Yeah, and 5th edition does a really good job for personality quirks and backgrounds, things that might further inform how your NPCs may act or react to certain character acts.
One of the funniest things I ever did to an NPC years ago, there was a fairly high-level dwarf thief assassin, but he had only half a leg, so he had a peg leg.
Right.
And that comes from his many years as being on a ship and as a pirate. Of course, he's got a peg leg. But he was a thief, and he's a really good one. But with a peg leg, you can't sneak up on people. You can't climb a wall.
Click.
But he used that to his benefit on doing some other things, because he only had 1 foot, so he would put on a different boot, and leave 1 footprint. His peg leg, he would tie another boot onto it, so you couldn't make a set of prints that didn't make sense.
Right, one's like a
everything from a shoe. He had high heel shoes and a horseshoe that he would strap on. So he would just mess with somebody who was trying to track him.
You're like, it looks like there was a horse maybe, or somebody on
foot. Because he, especially if the ground was soft, he would run, and then he used acrobatics, and he would skip on 1 leg down the road, leaving 1 horseshoe or something, and then he would take off running again. And it's like, where'd this go? I don't know. But he could not climb walls, and he could not move silently anymore. There's a number of things he just couldn't do because of it.
Right.
So really made the most of it. So would you give your characters some true flavor? I mean, not just the way they look, but the way they act, the way they talk. Maybe this guy is he's here from another country, and there's a specialty food item that's only found in his country that he's killing and pillaging all of these people to get this huge treasure together so he can pay for the outlandish shipping fees to get this food item that he wants from his homeland. He gets it, it's like a sandwich, and it cost him 100 pounds of gold for this one silly little sandwich.
Well, we see this sort of with Indiana Jones. When he's out chasing the Nazis through the desert to get the Ark of the Covenant, they have dates.
Yes.
And so they're very regional. We can now go to the store based on world economics and get some dates and things of that nature. But, what if, as a gift, you have chocolate-covered dates on these henchmen that you're finding?
Oh, yeah.
And so you never see the bad guy, but you start like, what the hell is this food? Like chocolate-covered, and it's, it'd be exotic. It would be a marker, but it's not your typical signet ring or big medallion or. So there's things like that.
Yeah. I'll always write up a sheet that tells about the motivations for your NPC, and include a character sheet, because once they get into a battle, if he's got a sword, he's got a wand of fireballs, a ring of regeneration. I run him through, aha! And we go around searching everything. A few minutes later, he jumps back up off the floor. Wait a minute, we killed you.
He's like, no, that really hurt.
You ruined my good shirt.
This also goes, if your story is part of something episodic or a larger campaign, or you're starting to get into world building, don't forget to put NPCs, your good guy NPCs. So, organization heads like kings, princesses, barbarian tribe leaders, those people that you're going to run into. You want to know a little bit about what their interests are and why they sent these
town
guys.
guard.
Yeah. How do these guys react to rowdy adventurers burning down the tavern?
Yeah. Not well.
It's
not
usually
well.
not.
Usually not.
But especially if they're going to be recurring NPCs, you'll want to have some more information about them. That'll be helpful. So, as we go through the other thing, location. Locations are going to be critical. Can't have a story without it happening somewhere.
Gotta have it somewhere.
So, with the example of Joe's Adventure, we're going to have at least this labyrinth, the school that they've been at. We're going to have a few locations, and because we know what our story is, what our objective is,
well,
we know where that's
starting
happening.
with, it's in Forgotten Realm.
Yeah, broadly. Boom,
and
easy.
he loves Waterdeep.
Okay.
So I don't know if we're gonna put this square in Waterdeep, but it's probably somewhere near.
With Waterdeep, there's so much that's been developed since second edition and Forgotten Realms release, and then Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Dragon Heist. There's a lot of 5th edition expansion to Waterdeep itself. There's so many little secret doors, extra spaces. We can go into the Underdark. Because it can be wherever you want it to go.
Yeah, I think we're going to put it somewhere near.
Yeah, and that'd be cool because it just adds to the flavor that's already available for Waterdeep.
Since we know we're going to be in Forgotten Realms, that tells us about our races that can be there. That tells us about magic spells, magic items that will and won't be there.
How they interact with each other. Waterdeep in particular, if we're going to set there, we know what the temperament of the town is, what their politics are,
So knowing where it's taking place adds a lot of flavor to your adventure. And if it's a world setting that's been pre-made and you bought somewhere, or if it's one that you're building yourself, which is a big project, if you're going to be doing that, then you'll need to determine all of these different things: the politics, the climate, vegetation, town guard. How do they react to adventurers guilds? Just a number of things that you'll have to determine.
Luckily, we're going to have the benefit of Forgotten Realms and some of these 20 plus years of established development. So that's going to make our job a little easier as a game master. But we're still going to be responsible for certain story specific locations, like their dorm and the labyrinth, and some things that we'll need as we write our story. We'll find some locations that we'll have to describe, a place inside the world setting, and figure out how the characters come and go.
Yeah, I've already determined that this is going to have to be taking place at a compound of at least 5 to 6 buildings, if not more.
Right.
So a walled compound for their own protection, because as an adventurers guild, they got some money on hand, so they're going to be protective of that. So there's going to be some maps I'm going to have to make showing the different buildings, and of course the labyrinth itself. Looking forward to drawing a labyrinth, not so much. Maybe Gwydion said he wanted to do the labyrinth, so maybe I'll let him do that.
Yeah, he's been big on the map. His maps are pretty good, so that'll be
fun.
Maps are
pretty awesome. Absolutely.
But that comes down to it. If your locations don't already have a map, you need to get some. Troy, you've got some really good advice. So if we're putting like a treasure map together, or you're building some kind of other story, historical map.
Historical maps. Go to Google. I'm sure people have heard of Google by now. But go to Google and search ancient world map, and there's a whole lot of them on there. The ones that I personally like are the ones that have the sea monsters out in the ocean. So you can, once you get the map, then you can just take part of it and print that out and use that. Or what I like to do is I'll print out a portion of a map, lay some paper over it, and then draw. So it has a, like a child did it. So that it doesn't look like I printed it off the internet. And I can highlight it, and I can color it, and I can sometimes I use watercolor paint. Then I'll take a lighter to it to put some edges on it, put the fire out, and age it. Or if it's white paper, you can actually take a glass of tea, pour some tea on it, smear it around, and it'll turn it that old brown parchment color. And always wrinkle it up so when your players get it, they don't have a brand new piece of paper with the map on it. And one of the fun things to do is, so you got your map, and X is right here, and then you tear the map in half,
Yeah.
and or in 3 pieces, 4 pieces, and then you hide those in different places for the different characters to find. And of course, you got to put some kind of crazy clue with it because that's
Part of
always
the fun
fun.
of a map adventure.
Part of apps, and then when they get the map, now they got to go, do whatever. And just because this cobalt kid,
That's
just because this cobalt hit a wagon load of treasure, let that be known. It's a wagon load of treasure. Oh my God, how much gold is that? It doesn't have to be gold.
well, sure,
It
but
could be
also,
stuff that was valuable to him. His personal.
how big is a wagon to a kobold? Are we talking, like it could end up being a Red Rider, and not like a 4-cart ox wagon. You know, it's a wagon load. Like he's a kobold.
So what does he hold valuable?
Right.
So one of the things I did to players, there was a cobalt and there's a wagon load of treasure, and they knew kobolds have been raiding here and there, so like it's got to be a cobalt.
Yeah.
So the leader of this band of kobolds had been overthrown, and some new kobold came up through the ranks and killed him, took over, and the whole thing was a race to find the treasure. Right. So they had parts of the map and they're doing all this stuff and different clues and everything. So it's a race to get the treasure. So when they get the treasure, they find the wagon and it's buried in this cave. It's all blocked off and everything. They finally get to the treasure, and there's this big trunk, and they pull it out here and they get it busted open, and there's stuff in there, like a teddy bear from when he was just a little guy.
Yeah.
It's got an ear missing and the leg is torn off, and it's like his teething stick from when he was a kid. It's his bowl. It's got his name scratched in it, and a spoon. It's all chewed up. It's all his childhood memory, family heirloom kind of stuff. Nothing in it is worth anything.
It reminds me of some of the stuff we saw in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, when so at one point Kurt goes home and his mom's got his action figures from when he was a kid, and
Exactly.
they're talking about how collectible they are and all this stuff, and it was like, here's a society based solely on the acquisition of wealth, and he's got action figures.
He's collecting action figures.
But it was important to him, and they still have sentimental value. They're not unfeeling. But some of the other stuff that was fun was when, who was it? It's not Rom. It was Rom's son. Goes to Starfleet.
Nog.
Yeah, when Nog goes to Starfleet,
Yeah.
part of what he's supposed to do in this ritual is sell off all of his childhood stuff.
Right.
Including like a teeth sharpener.
Yeah.
And some weird stuff. So,
My favorite was Kira comes over there and looks at it and goes, "Hey, this is mine.
I remember that.
I've been missing this for 2 years. I've been looking for this for 2 years.
And there it is.
And there it is.
For the low price.
For the low price of 3 serfs platinum, you can have that. But it's mine. I ain't giving you nothing for it." Okay.
Yeah, a lot of fun stuff like that.
So just because it's a wagon load of treasure doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a bunch of gold, a bunch of silver, or whatever valuable.
Yeah, understood as the universal valuable.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can have, and that gives a lot of fun, and that brings the flavor back to your party and to your players. Now, hopefully you got players that can take a good joke, because some of them are going to be pretty mad.
Oh, man.
You got to have players that you can understand it. But my players, they laughed at it. They thought it was hilarious, and they wound up keeping the wagon because it was the only thing there.
Worth
anything.
The wagons were 20 gold. The teddy bear, I mean, there you
go. I think the barbarian kept the teddy bear too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's just odds and ends. But you definitely got to have some fun. That's number one rule of the game. Have fun. Just be sure and work that into your adventures. When you're designing out your story and your adventure, you need to know your players. If your players want a real serious game, do they want a puzzle solving game? Do they want a murder mystery kind of game? So build your story and your adventure around the kind of game that they like.
Right.
And that's going to make you a much better DM, because you're giving the game that they want. So if all your players love the murder mystery, and I'm over here and I designed this kick-ass puzzle game that's going to take them all night, and none of them are going to enjoy it. Every one of them is going to be pissed. Every room, they're going to hate it. They're going to hate it. They're going to hate it. Yeah. And they're going to talk, "Oh my God, Troy built this dungeon. It was horrible. It was the most awful thing we ever tried to play in. I hated it."
Well, to the same token, if you've got a murder mystery and everyone's kicking doors down all the time, you're not going to solve the murder.
No.
and they're not going to have much fun because there's usually not a whole lot of fighting to be done.
Right. So you want to build your story and your adventure based on the kind of game your players want.
And this is something we get into, particularly in the early conversations when someone's trying to move to the other side of the screen. You can't forget the game master is a player too.
Yes.
You just have a different role in the game. But, as you gather with your friends, kind of have an idea of the stories that you guys all like anyway. But just remember to be respectful of the audience.
Yeah. Have fun. Rule number 1 is have fun. As long as everybody at the table's having fun, the rules don't matter.
And it just gets different because, I like the darker themes, but you run a Vampire the Masquerade game way differently than you do a Dungeons and Dragons game, even when you're in Ravenloft.
Oh, yeah.
They're different games with similar themes. They don't play the same.
Mm-hmm. So what we got to do? We got maps, lots of maps. You can never have enough maps.
Really can't. But so rewards for the players when they accomplish the goal that we've set forward.
So that's part of a resolution, chapter 4 resolution.
A little bit. So let's focus specifically on the rewards. Because usually this is there.
They found the treasure hidden in the cave. It was a large trunk on this wagon. They've got the rewards.
Well, and so this could be like in the case of Joe's game. They're trying to find the Gygax particle as part of their ability to graduate. Right? They're completing the test. That's their reward is graduation. Other times you might find a bounty board, and your reward's the 500 gold for finding this particular. Or you've been conscripted to go and do this job because you accidentally burned down the bar last night. And so they kick your ass down the well to go figure out what well monsters living there. But you'll have a reward as part of your story that can partially provide motivation to your party.
That's other than a pile of gold. So if they get treasure for accomplishing the solving the murder mystery or protecting the caravan all the way to the next town, what have you. I mean, they get their money, sure, but there should be also something else. That they have made friends with the merchant who's going to hire them again to guard his caravans because they did such an outstanding job.
Right.
The mayor of the town may grant them pass, some paperwork that they can keep in their pocket. So the next time the guards stop them, they can show this and says, "Oh, okay, you're those guys. Well, we'll let you go in." Or they can show it at the tavern for 10% off a beer. Something that helps them motivate their characters to want to keep in the story in it, and keep going forward and drive the story.
One of the things that we did, particularly with older editions, because by the time you're level 9, it's anticipated that you're establishing some sort of fortress or guild or something of that nature, depending on your character. So being given the right to buy land was not something that you always saw in, old England and all that stuff. So to be landed gentry, and this just came up in The Mandalorian again.
It did.
Which was very interesting to see, the right to buy land, the ability to be able to purchase and hold property.
Yep.
That can be a huge reward, and particularly if you're going to be in, I want to help my team establish a base of operations. Well,
I remember when I was playing my main character, we were all 10th to 12th level, and as a half-elf fighter magic user, they could just lay waste about anything in front of me.
Yeah.
We got up to a point where we're starting to build an army, and we're just kind of this ragtag bunch going around.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me, hey, we need a place.
Yeah.
And so I started looking at the maps, and I found a place. And when we saved the day again, and because now we have like a band of small 35 or 50 henchmen.
Well done, brave adventurers.
Real done.
Name your price.
Name your price. And the king looked at all of us, and this guy wanted a pile of gold. This guy wanted a bag of rubies. This guy was wanting this and that. He wanted some magic boots or something. And they got down to me and said, "Okay, what do you want?" I said, "I want to have the right to own land."
Yeah.
And everybody at the table looked at me and go, "What?"
It's the most valuable thing you can have in a fantasy setting.
Yeah. So it took some doing, role-playing wise. And this king that we did the great deed for petitioned the king of the next kingdom.
Right.
And they set aside this large area, and there's their border, and there's these hills that nobody lived in. It was, even in the map and the world description, it says nobody lives here because
rough terrain.
It's rough terrain
and it sucks.
and it sucked. but there is known to be large deposits of silver.
Oh yeah.
I was like, yeah. So I want that spot. And they got, okay. And so my DM made up a nice little certificate of ownership and then a title for my character, named him a baron because he now owns land.
Yeah.
And I took all this wealth that we've been combining for years playing and figured it all up and go, damn.
And you start dumping out bags of holding. You're like, that's a pretty big pile.
I started dumping out bags. Like, how can I put this on my MasterCard so I can get points for it? And started building a stronghold. The next thing I knew, all the other players were building. He's like, hey, Troy, can I build something over here? And then somebody else comes into town. Hey, I want to build this over here. I said, stop. I'm going to hire 3 people. 1, I want an apothecary. 2, I want a blacksmith. 3, I need a tavern.
Oh, yeah. Like,
right
that's a
there.
basic. Boom.
And like, bam, bam, bam. That got built. It didn't even cost me nothing. They showed up and built it.
Right.
So they were NPCs.
They wanted to be part of what was now growing.
And every time I turned around, it was so hilarious. So after that, every time we went on adventuring, there's list of 5 or 7 of us characters, and when we came back, like a character a year or 2 later, and got back there to home, so we can dump out our bags of holding, put some new shoes on our horses, get a new shirt,
This one's been stabbed a couple times.
They're like, wait a minute, what's all this?
Yeah.
What are these buildings? What the hell's that over there?
Is that gnomes? Are gnomes mining my silver?
I have a freaking 3 silver mines and a smelter.
Nice.
And I'm like, well, why the hell am I adventuring?
At this point, retired. I need to hire adventurers to go keep the orcs off of my land.
You betcha. I need an army to protect my borders.
And this is why, when you become a 20th level wizard, you're holed up in your wizard's tower at that point.
Yeah.
And you go find the level 3 guys to go keep the goblins out of your grass.
I need spell components. Go get me these. Here's a list of these crazy stuff. Go give me spell components.
I'm 65. I'm not going down there. My hip doesn't work anymore.
So there are, when you're thinking about rewards for your players and your characters, keep in mind what the player sees as the future for their character. Mm-hmm. Because he may have a character that's a bard that doesn't want to own a place.
No, but if he wants to go back to the bardic college or whatever,
he may want to start his own college. He may want to do some research and develop a new musical instrument. There's a number of things. So keep these rewards in mind besides just a pile of gold, how they can see their character developing over the years into something that that the player is gonna like to play and is gonna give them some stories to tell and just have fun with it.
Yeah, typically new GMs out there, you won't get this in your backgrounds from first level characters, but if they've been around about the time they reach 4th or 5th level, your players will start to form attachments with these characters. They'll start to understand where they want these characters to develop. And around that 4th, 5th level is the time to start having those conversations and see where your players want to take their characters.
Oh, absolutely.
And how this might be able to develop further stories or play into the story you've already written.
And when your player takes some time to write up a character background, be sure and read it and try to tie in points in their history into your campaign. One of the ones that I did that I thought was going to be just a subtle little hint.
Oh yeah.
That the players just completely went that way with the story. They were going through some dungeons of orc raiders, I think it was, and I said, okay, so in the pile of all the weapons and knives and axes and spears and things that they find is this really nice dagger with a leather scabbard that's got some artwork on it, and some crossguard and pommel are silver, and there's scroll work on it. It's a really nice. It's not an expensive knife. It probably costs 3 to 5 gold to have it made, but on the blade has been inscribed your father's name.
Sorry, this guy that was awkward timing, but carbonated soda. Why? But
that was the reaction the whole table had. Yeah. So they're like, "Oh my God, my father's knife," and the player looked at me as a DM and was like, "Where'd that come from?" I said, "Well, in your character history, you talked about how your dad was part of the militia that went out fighting orcs and he never came home. And part of your character history is you want to find out what happened to your dad.
Yeah.
So you find his dagger in this armory of this particular orc band. He's like, well, oh, you didn't leave anyone alive.
No, now I need answers.
You killed them all. There's nobody left alive to interrogate. So now they have to start an investigation to figure out what's going on. And they completely lost their mind. They're there to do something, and that got pushed to the side. And now they're going this way because, well, we got his knife. So we know his dad somehow was tied in with these orcs. There was orcs. Could they be the ones that captured him and did something? Well, they tied in somehow, so we got to figure out how. And then they just turned into a whole big player investigation. It went on for almost two character levels. It went on and on and on. They really went into it. And I had to just take, okay, here's my story outline.
Yeah, you're like, let me
I'm going to start writing another one. I'm going to start writing another one because that one's gone.
For sure.
But the players really got into it because you just take something small out of their history and you can put it into your story. Be careful how you do it.
Yeah, barely.
And make it into something. One of the other ones I had fun with, a guy had put in his character story that he was a twin, and he wants to find his twin brother. His twin brother left home 2 years ago to seek his fortune, and I don't know where he went. I haven't seen him since. I'm looking for my twin brother. That's why I'm out in the world. Okay. So they come into a nice town, and they're going into the tavern like all good adventurers do. And this young lady with tile and arm, and this big burly guy that sounds like her father. She goes, "There he is!" And looking at you. And they come over and he grabs you by the shirt and he says, "You're going to make an honest woman of my daughter and marry her this day, or I'm going to kill you." Excuse me, I don't know your daughter. And you're like, "Are you calling her a liar?" "That's him, Papa. I swear that's him, Papa." Well, it's not you, but it's your twin brother. Try to explain that one in a court of law.
Oh yeah.
So now you really need to find your twin brother.
Yeah, Maury Povich shows up. The DNA test says
the DNA test says you are not the father.
No, well, with twins you would be.
Yes, you would.
Unfortunately, but I actually am not. But there's a thing. Yeah.
So you can put things from their character history into the story to really get some player involvement that will take your whole game to another level of just fun.
And what it really does is it brings all of the action into the world.
Yes.
You're no longer just looking at maps and you have to, some sheet with numbers on it.
Oh, let's go kill some more orcs and get treasure.
But the role you've taken on as a player is now set into the setting. You're now in the world setting.
Definitely.
And that's where that enhancement comes from.
Absolutely. So now we're talking about rewards, and now
we get to the ending. Now, in this part where we mean the ending, it's not just like done, but how do we want? Is this adventure done? Have we defeated the orcs and there are no more orcs, or are we dealing with something that has some follow through? Okay, we've managed to thwart this assassination attempt against the king, but the assassin fled, and now we're having to pursue him. So when you get to your ending, this is where Troy was talking about. We've mentioned, are we doing one adventure, or is this part of a series that can become a campaign as you develop the rest of your
So
game?
if you have a cliffhanger at the end of your adventure, you don't necessarily have to pick it up there next week. Right. So your assassin got away. Damn it. They're slick. They're good. If he's good, that's how he got away. You bring him back, or the guy that hired him back, a couple months from now.
Right.
Player time.
And if the problem doesn't even necessarily need to be addressed by the players.
No.
Like, oh, brave adventurers, thank you for saving the king. We're gonna dispatch our elites. The Queen's Guard. We're now go find this assassin and bring him to justice. Here's your reward. So yes, the players had a hand in saving the king, but they're not going to be necessarily responsible for continued pursuit.
Right.
But to Troy's point, you come back and you find him later, or you find an associate, or they come back and they want revenge. You're like, damn it, because we couldn't complete the contract.
Right.
I have to kill you guys, or the Assassin's Guild's going to kill me.
One of my favorite things to do in this situation to the players is they have the wanted poster. They're putting it up. It's over. So
Yeah.
they go to the town guard. The town guard have a wanted poster, and they're putting it up. And he goes to reach for a hammer and a nail, and a dagger from out of the crowd sinks into the not the hand,
Yeah, but in the
into
paper.
the paper, nailing it to the board, and you can't tell where the knife came from.
And when you look back,
But
no
that lets everybody know that it's not over.
there. Right.
It's not over.
So when
Again, bad guys are the mob. So he worked for somebody that hired him to go kill this guy, and they're not going to be too happy he didn't complete the job. So he's going to have to complete the job or cut his own finger off and hope that the Yakuza don't kill him.
Right.
So if you get into an assassination kind of thing, and a lot of the bad guys, I mean, they're trying to get power by taking out the other bad guys. So which is also one of my favorite things to do to a party. So you have brave adventurers.
Mm-hmm.
I need to help you. We have bandit problem. Bandits are attacking the caravan.
Right.
Okay, so we got bandits attacking the caravan. They're bad guys A. So who's running the caravan? Wait, I'll tell you. Bad guys B. They're running the caravan of stolen goods. Other bandits are attacking it because it's their goods to start with. So the brave adventurers are running shotgun on the caravan to protect it.
Because it's a legitimate merchant who doesn't know he's carrying stolen goods. And so there's a lot of that's awesome.
So you put them in the middle of showdown in Little Tokyo, and all hell breaks loose, and they don't know who the bad guy is.
Yeah.
They think that's the bad guy, but you're being hired by the bad guy.
Even if your story is, the necromancer raising an army of undead for his own purposes and you defeat him, that chapter can be done. It's totally fine. Just know where you're going when you sit down to write this out. This is why we've got these 7 points. So, when I finish this story, are we done with this story and I'm going to start a next one, even if we're using the same characters? Or does this have a few more chapters to tell? This is what we're looking at for the ending.
So this one time
in Beirut,
I had a necromancer doing very much what he was doing.
Yeah.
And he was trying to raise up an army. And the whole reason he was low level. I think he was like 7th or 9th level.
Right. And
he was just trying to get up, doing some things because he needed to show up to the bad guy's lair with his own guys, with his own army of undead.
Right, to be able to pledge.
As part of his pledge, too. Right. And so he can't show up alone. So the heroes come there and they wipe everything out. Well, almost. One zombie got away.
Oh, no.
So one zombie, without somebody to control it, just starts wandering the land. And so I started these random postings when they go to different villages of moans in the night or cats disappearing or strange scratch marks and drag marks here and there. And it was we eventually just called him Dave the Zombie. Because there's a comic book about Dave the Zombie.
Yes, there's Zombie Dave.
Zombie Dave. And it was just kind of this random encounter of this zombie going through the land. He had nobody in charge of him.
Right.
He was a free will zombie. But so what does he do?
Zombie things.
It's zombie stuff.
And because he's a magical zombie, he doesn't necessarily create others
to
become a horde of zombies.
Right.
But he could if he wanted him to.
He could. He could. But he was just a free will zombie, and it became like a running gag after a while. Zombie Dave.
So that's some of our 7 points. Now, when it comes to the ending, since we are running a con game, that is going to be finality, right? We're going to get to the point where the heroes have hopefully completed their objective, receive the Gygax particle, and then you'll have a wrap up similar to probably Star Wars Episode 4. Everybody gets their medals, they get the little diplomas, and get out.
And I'm gonna have some prizes for everybody, and there's gonna be a prize for who the grand winner is, point wise, and the winner of the battle at the end.
That'll be a little bit separate from the story, but as a con game, that's for Undermount. We had stuff like most traps found, most character deaths, a lot of those funny things. But we were able to give away trophies and some books and some dice, things that you could get for participating. So you come here, play this game, have a good time, and get some stuff for it.
This is going to be easier to score than that one.
Sure. Yeah.
Because the challenge rooms, it'll be very easy to see who shined in this challenge room or that challenge.
Yeah.
And so, with 4 people, I'm just going to do a very simple 10, 5, 2, and 1 points.
Right.
So whoever was first, you got 10, then 5, then 2, then 1. I just keep points. And then, of course, the final room, uh, people are going to go in based on their point scores to that point. Will go in that order.
Okay.
And whoever has the Gygax particle gets 2 instead of 1 when going in. I don't want to give it away because it's going to be a lot. Yeah. So I'll tell you this much: Joe wanted the final battle between the party and the bad guy to be a giant pie fight, like you see in the Three Stooges. Yes. And I can't do that, so I'm going to be working up the next best thing, and I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, we said a little bit earlier. It's gonna, but that tells you kind of where Joe's coming from. He loves the game. He loves tabletop role play.
Yep.
And he's got as much passion for it as anybody.
Yep.
And he just wants to have a fun game and a pie fight. You know, ha ha ha! Silly adventurers, this demon lord is only weak to pie. Here's a table full of lemon meringue. Have at it.
That's not far from it, actually.
I need Dave. I need a wand of summon pie. Like,
well, what he has is an allergy to lemon. So lemon meringue pie.
I hope he's got an EpiPen somewhere.
Well, you would think a good bad guy would,
For sure.
I'm allergic to lemons.
But yeah, there we go. So this is one of the things too. A lot of people expect Lord of the Rings when they play Dungeons and Dragons. I've had several games that ended up really intense, high adventure, lots of action, very cool.
Oh yeah.
But they more often than not become Monty Python.
They do.
And that, my lord, is how you prevent earthquakes employing sheep platters.
And that consequently is how we know that the earth is banana shaped.
Yeah. So it's totally fine. Again, it's a game. And rule number 1 is as long as everyone is having fun, rules don't matter. So rule of cool, the rules are there to structure the play, but particularly with the con game, or your home game, you're gonna have a lot of fun with this one.
Oh, I can't wait. This game as it's winding up would not work, I don't think, as a home game.
It would be a one shot, and it would be very funky to execute.
There's a lot of things about it that I don't know would play well. Although that's the challenge with me writing it, is I have to write it both as a home game, and then I'm adding a paragraph for the con rule.
Sure.
So different things in the rooms that are going to be there, and different ways to score it, and things like that for the con.
One of the things we haven't yet mentioned is that the goal of this adventure is to have a sellable product that will become a charity product that will help support Joe and others like him in the gaming sphere with disabilities that have difficulty engaging.
Yep. We'll have this ready at VisionCon to play, and also going to have it to sell. And it is a fundraiser with 100% of the profits going to Joe and others.
So that's where we want to make sure that it's playable both in the con context, but at home or maybe in a game store context. Yeah. So it's going to be a bit different. Like I said, it's a little different than when we write our normal stories and adventures. I sit down and go and shoot stormtroopers and Star Wars. Or Tori's got us, lost in the caves fighting orcs and Umber Hulks and stuff.
And he's already pitched me an idea for another.
Yeah.
I said, let's get through this one first. And I just wrote down a few lines about it.
Right.
And so he also likes the movie Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, Big Trouble in Little China.
Big Trouble in Little China. And Gremlin.
Oh, yes.
So those two tied together. And
More shenanigans.
Because the Chinese guy from those two movies is the same guy.
Same actor. And we talked about this with our Halloween last year as presenting Mogwai as a possible antagonist.
Joe made that same connection before I didn't even mention it. He's like, that's the same China guy from this movie and that movie.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I said, and? He says, so he has gremlins everywhere.
And
if he's a mage, he's a wizard, has a castle, it's overrun with them.
And he also had the magic shop. Yeah, so there we go. We'll have to, that seems like that's going to happen. Be happening probably in 2 years. But,
One other thing I want to go over when you're building your game here, uh, keep in mind for your players, but what level do you want to make this for your adventuring party? Do we want to have it as a first level adventure, fifth, seventh, ninth, 10th? Uh, and if you're building a true one shot, are you going to use their characters or are you going to make characters for them?
Yeah, is it standalone or is it just a one shot sort of side adventure in your normal story?
Yeah, and if it is a standalone one shot and you're going to provide characters, be sure when you're equipping them with spells and armor and magic items, non-magic items, that they have all the tools that they need to complete the adventure and live at the end. So
Yeah.
so that the party doesn't die because this guy didn't have whatever potion.
Well, if you're fighting specters, you need magic weapons to hit them, and no one's got one. That's an
Right.
oversight.
That is, yeah. So you want to go through the whole thing, make sure your traps and your monsters and everything, that the characters you provide them have everything they need to fight them and come out the end as the victor and triumphant. So,
If you're using different content like Xanathar's or Tasha's, D&D Beyond has access to all that. It should keep you pretty well. It should help you manage putting those characters together pretty easily.
D&D Beyond, that's what Gwydion and I both use that extensively for our characters we provide at games, cons.
Yeah.
And what I do, I'll just randomly generate one, and then I go back, and if I know I want this to be 5th level, okay, I'm gonna give him +1 sword. I'm gonna give this guy. I'm gonna give this other guy shield. I'm gonna give this guy these potions. I'm gonna give this guy magic boots. And you can go through there and design that character very specifically, picking out either clothes and rations or a +2 long sword. You can add it to that character, so you can definitely build it specifically 100%. And then we save it as a PDF, so now we have a small army of characters.
We got a lot. Thank you, D&D Beyond. We love you.
I think I know I've got over 50.
Yeah.
Just for our con, and I'm sure Gwydion has that or not more.
He's brought us 50, and I know he's got more than that.
So I'm sure he's got that, if not. So just some of the things we're talking about building for Joe's game. Again, that's going to be a Vision Con this coming October. I strongly ask that anybody that can make it, please come, watch the game, have fun with it. If you get there early enough, sign up. It'll be pre-made characters, so all you got to do is just bring yourself and be ready for some fun.
And we try to make it easy to participate, so come participate.
Yeah, come just. Since it is a charity game, I don't know what kind of charity they're doing there, but we typically will have a $1 donation for whatever the charity.
Yeah, we've always been able to give a few $100 at least off of our games to the charity of the con, which is that's important to us. We like to be able to participate, support groups, let us have fun.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of stuff today.
Yeah, so this will be a good review for stories. I'll give you a little bit of what's coming up with this particular special game, and hopefully give you a little bit to go on as you write your next game.
Yeah, I think maybe in a couple of weeks we'll do another one.
Yeah, we'll keep you up to date as we make progress with Joe's game, and keep checking in here. Don't forget that our regular stream is a third Sunday. We're going through the realms this year. Our first episode will be with Faerun.
Faerun, also known as Forgotten Realms. And I just talked to our special guest DM that's going to come. I was talking with her yesterday.
Yeah.
Katie from Nixa. She plays out of Haven Games down there. She runs Forgotten Realms, Faerun, almost exclusively. And in fact, all her homebrew material somewhere is set in Faerun. We were talking about a lot of the stuff. She has it on the brain, pretty much.
Yeah, so she's going to help provide a in-depth 5th edition perspective while we go through the 2nd edition and earlier material to show you what's available, both new and old. So if you want to expand your games like Katie has into the world of Forgotten Realms, you'll be able to have that information to do so.
She's going to be bringing box sets, books, maps, props, and all kinds of stuff. And she said, "Hey, can I bring this too?" I said, "Sure." The more the better. We put it all on camera. So we're going to show off everything from 1st to 2nd edition all the way up to 5th edition, Forgotten Realms, Faerun, and just how the world has grown and changed. and hopefully you're having fun with it. And you can not call. I always want to say call, but they can't call. You can chat in on Twitch and say, "Hey, open this book. I want to see that picture again," or just whatever.
Or what did you think about the way they did this? All of that's also going to be in the context of helping you create your own world setting. So we've got several points that would be highlighting 10 points for world creation. We'll show you how they've done it with Faerun, and how you can do it yourself if you're taking on the project of writing your own world setting for your game.
It's some of the different points that we've seen about how to build a world, some of the things that you need to include to actually make a world. So these different world settings we're going to look at, these same 10 points, politics, maps, monsters, magic, technology, and all these different key points. And then also look at the special things that give that world its flavor. Yeah. What makes Forgotten Realms Forgotten Realms? How come Forgotten Realms is not like Greyhawk?
Yeah, they are completely different.
They're completely different, and we're going to look at the little things that give the world its flavor. I don't mean like Tabasco sauce, but why is Forgotten Realms special in and of itself? And some of those different.
So, on me, Jester Borris, and
I'm Troy, the Planescape guy,
and our special guest DMs next time on D&D Through the Realms, here at I Want to Be a GM.
I Want to Be a GM. That's on .com, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and here you can find us also at Discord.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. We'll see you soon. Click, like, discuss, and all that other stuff. Subscribe.
Do the hokey pokey.